Okay, mes amis, as everybody that's been with me for a while knows, I claim everything is biological. And there was a time in the past that, just as was written, there were enormous giants, titans, all that stuff, and the earth is literally made of biology. That's my claim. Now, can I support that? Well, yes. What is this? What do you see there? If you ever had a cat or a dog and you've seen fleas, that's what a flea looks like, basically. Now, why is it green? What's all that moss growing on there for? This is a tree right here. These are the legs of a girl back here. She's probably 10 years old or something. This is over in the Czech Republic. I am going to explain to you about the green. I'm going to explain to you about this flea. And if I was right, which I am, these creatures were so big, they had parasites that were like school buses. And I'm not kidding you. This thing's pretty good size. Now, this is what a flea looks like. You see that one there? This is a flea, pretty damn close. And they're saturated with blood. And as I will show you and demonstrate to you, nobody's ever understood about this moss. Wait till you see what I have to say. If you jump out of this video now, you're out of your mind. This is the flea. This is what a flea looks like when they're just floating around biting things. Now, what I am about to show you will shock you forever. I'm serious, will shock you literally forever. Because if you ain't seen nothing yet, but baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm going to show you something you never will forget. Okay, so you've seen my little flea friend here, and that's good size, and all this moss is growing there, I say, because there was red blood. Red blood just grows moss. They grow out of the arteries, and wherever red blood is emitted, if there's enough moisture in that area, it'll just start growing moss. They will just start growing green moss. Now, this has always perplexed me since day one. These little balls are totally covered with green moss. And they are everywhere. This whole mountain is covered because at one time this was skin, as I will demonstrate, undeniable. Why is every single ball, 100% of them, covered with moss? How could that possibly happen? Some of them I could say yes, I could see, but not every single one of them. And all of these chunks here, these are not chunks of these moss. This is chunks of tissue and blood. Literally, I'm not kidding you. This was from one absolutely stunningly large creature. And I know this area too. It's up in Alaska. I was right down the street from there. I lived up there for a couple of years. And Mount Spur is right up in that area too, which is an active volcano, which is also biological. All of this stuff is now fitting together absolutely flawlessly. And it supports everything that I have been saying. Now, stick around and you're going to see some of the things that will change everything that you have thought about history and about geology and about maybe even the future. See what you think, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is factually based. It's not pareidolia or any of that stuff. If you can say that after watching this, I'd like to hear your explanation. Get ready. All right, so what is my green moss balls problem? There they are right there. And you can see them. They're not only here. Every single one of these balls is saturated with this moss. Every single one, 100%, not 99%, 100%. How did every single one of these become infected with green moss? I know what these balls are, and these are from biology. They are part of the flexible part of membranes that can move and come back. These are the anchors. There's all kinds of little straps running between, which you don't see anymore. They're gone. They're cheap. These are not. They stay forever. However, built into these balls, built into them when they are in the body of a creature, I believe is this moss. And we have the same stuff built into us. I believe we have the same moss built in us. I'm not kidding you. I'm going to show you why I say that. All right, before I show you the evidence, I want to make my claims. My claim is that this is some form of like an algae, biology, whatever. But it is literally inside of us in our blood. It's growing in there. We never knew it was there until they did this study. Well, this is my theory. This is my theory, so it's not, I'm not telling you to do anything, don't do anything, or any of that. This is my theory based on the new discovery of the brain microbiome. They always talk about the gut microbiome. You got a ton of all kinds of things growing in you, and that they are there for a specific purpose. Bacteria in your gut, thousands and thousands of species, they create enzymes. Enzymes are the things that do the chemistry. They work millions of times faster than if you didn't have that enzyme. So life would not be able to exist without the enzyme. It's 100% certain. You cannot do the chemistry fast enough without the enzymes. So if you're missing bacteria in your body that is crucial and critical for making a certain type of enzyme, you're going to be sick. And that enzyme floats through that layer that I showed you before, which is the fluid-filled highway. And they attack invaders. That is your immune system. Now, it has all kinds of chemistry in there, and one of the bits of chemistry is this moss. I'm telling you, I believe, I'm almost certain now that that moss is in red blood. I always said, if you see red blood, you're going to find moss. If it's in anywhere there's moisture, you're going to find some kind of moss. Now, even in the oceans, in the salt, they still grow some kind of a biology on top of there, but it's in the salt water. And 100% of them do. 100% of them, I'll show you that. And don't forget, these are gigantic creatures, absolutely enormously. Think of this. This is the skin of some creature that is absolutely enormous. And I know where this is, and it's up in Alaska. And I was right up in that area, and Mount Spur is right down the street from here. It's biology on steroids up there. But you can see way back up everywhere. You see this? This is all skin up in here. That's not just nothing. It just didn't come here from nowhere. This is not like spontaneous moss combustion. This is had to be built into those balls when they were inside a creature's body. I can't see any other possibility. None. Zero. How about that? This is a kid's legs. The kid looked like he was 10 years old or something. This is a giant flea, or something like that, a flea or some kind of parasite that was on a giant creature who wouldn't even know it was there. These creatures were so big, this would have been just walking around having a good day, eating all kind of blood, and that's where the blood is still in this creature. All of this red, green moss is growing on the blood that was inside this parasite. I'm telling you, things are so different than we thought. Absolutely. Oh, this is nothing. That's paradiolia. No, it's not. It's PhDolia is the problem, where the PhDs, they can't see anything, have no idea what's going on because they can't see past their snooty little noses. So they're never going to see. Go away, you're crazy. Well, this is changing now. Trump's coming in. We're going to get some reality, I hope. He's changing the education system. He's changing the medical system. We've got to change everything. I mean, I'm talking everything. Okay, my good friends, just give it a little consideration. This cliff edge here, these caves, they built little enclosures in here for shelter. Now, this is the top of everything. Going straight down, it's like 500 feet, straight down. I mean straight down. Now, who would put a set of stairways going down to here so you could jump into what? Into nothing? No. Into water. Where's the water? Well, at one time the water was here. The water was right up in this area, and they would come down to, they probably tied their boats up around here or whatever, and they would come down to their boats. And probably at one time the water was up to here. And they didn't have to cut this down. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But I see no reason for these stairs. I mean, just give it a little thought. If you can come up with some reason for it, I'd like to know. But I, myself, cannot. However, as I have shown, there was a great flood, virtually no question about this. And the earth is literally built of creatures' bodies, and these are layers of tissue. That is a break in blocks. I believe these are either muscle sarcomeres or they're layers of tissue, no matter what they are. And then every layer of tissue, at a certain point, they block off. And that's what we got here, is some giant biology we got here. Giant biology. Think of why anybody would put a set of stairs right there. Where does it go? It goes nowhere. It goes nowhere but into oblivion. There is zero other option here. At one time, the water, if you could think of another reason, I'd certainly like to know. All right, once again, Mudfossil eyes, get them on and watch. You see down here? You see down there? Those are muscle sarcomeres. They pinch like this, and they have a layer on the bottom and a layer on the top, and then there's just block and block and block and block and block all the way down and all the way across. You see all the way across? Look. You see there are all those little blocks all the way across, and the black and the red, make sure you pay attention to that. Black and red, block and block, all over. And then you come up from the side of the cliff and you hit this layer here. What's that all about? Somebody come up here and dig that out? No, I can tell you exactly what that is. That is, my friends, the fluid-filled highway that runs inside of a creature's body. Between this layer and this layer is this layer, which is the fluid-filled highway of immunity. I'm telling you right now, thank God that we're going to have a new director of health, which is going to be Kennedy, I hope. Because he's got some radical ideas, but they're radical to the mainstream, which is just lost, absolutely totally lost. They have no idea about this layer and what it does in the human body. And what it does is it filters enzymes and proteins in a fluid-filled network throughout every single cell, every single membrane in your body. And if you can get past that, you get a disease. If this was a lung or a kidney or a heart or a prostate or anything, you break through this layer, you get a disease. It's called cancer. It was an invasive disease. And even your neurons and so forth are these little tiny fibers. They have coating around them, just like insulation wires in your house. You didn't have the wire in your house would burn down, or you'd have all sparks flying everywhere. Well, it's got the same thing in your brain. They just did a new study, and they found out, yes, the brain is saturated with biology of all kinds, funguses and bacteria and all kinds of things they never thought was there. And this just came out the other day. And I also believe it solves my green mouse problem. Okay, you're all Mudfossil people now, or you're getting there. You see these layers? You see these colors? You see the black? You see the red? This is basically the same area where they had those caves, and they had the steps coming into Never Land. The water was up here somewhere at one point. You see this black coming down here in that pattern right like that? Why? Why? You see this black coming out of here in this pattern right here? Why? Why? Why the stripes? Why the blocks? We know that red is the color of blood, and we know that black is the color of the vein blood after it's been expanded. And that's what we have here, because this was layers of body tissue from a big, big, big creature. Okay, this is where I showed you the lakeside cottage, well, when it was a lake. These are the sarcomeres. There they are. These are the blocks of sarcomeres. I'll show them to you again. But this is the fluid-filled highway, this whole area here. All right, that whole area was originally at one time a fluid-filled layer inside of the body of a creature, and anything that tried to penetrate it, there was like troops in there, and they would attack the invaders and kill them. That is your immune system. You see here, they were living up here, and then they sort of worked their way down and made a little place here, and they had a little landing here. It looks like when they could put their boats up here. I'm not kidding. I don't know what they were doing here, but this is just biology on steroids, my friend. Everything is, and there is not one culture on the face of this planet, not one, that says that the earth was made of anything other than creatures' bodies. They all have the same story. They all differ here and there a little bit. One of them's the head of a Tiamat or whatever, and then one of them is, they got the Norse. Everybody's got their own story. The Mayans, the Aztecs, everybody, and they have their creator gods. And these were the creator gods. And there was a lot of them. There wasn't just one. There was a ton of them. Now, there had to be, in my opinion, one gigantic god of gods. And they say in these ancient texts in the Bible and so forth that these lower gods rebelled against the upper god and took over the earth, basically, and made it a disaster, which it still is today. And these people are gods. These things are gods, the ones that were... Their bodies are all over the place, but somehow their godliness is somewhere. If they're immortal, they're but these are the creatures' bodies. Are these going to come back to life? I don't think so. I have no idea. But I'll tell you, it's interesting as hell. All right, these are the sarcomeres. All right, they blow them up bigger and bigger. So you can see them here. This is what your muscles will look like, and that's the wall of those caverns. Make it smaller, you get down to here where you can see the actual blocks, which you can see there. Then you get down to here where you can actually see the colored stuff and the layers in between. These erode out. These erode out, and in certain places where it's extremely dry, this in the center will erode out as well. But if you looked at it really closely, you'd see all these little balls and fibers inside of this. It's so unbelievable. When you get down into the depths of the beast, this is where you're at. Let me show you what that really looks like. Now this is out in Utah, Arizona, somewhere out in that area. They call these the Moki marbles. This is basement skin. This is heavy duty skin. Above that was this, a layer of balls and gooey stuff. And then above that was the fluid-filled highway. All of that is eroded down, but the balls are tough. They don't go away. So they ended up remaining here in this mud, which is literally muddy flesh. The red stuff is muddy flesh all over the earth. Red clays are eroded flesh. That's all it is. And when you see the balls in them, you were at the layer of skin. Just, I think this would have been below the membrane, the interstitial membrane. You know what? I got to look at this again. I get confused. That happens at my age. All right, yep, I was right. Amazing. Here's the deal. This is what your skin or any organ has, a layer like this, which is, they call it the mucosa. It's the coating, or it's skin, or it's a coating of a membrane. Below that, they have all this webbing. You see that webbing? Just below the skin or the membrane that coats your organ, you have this floppy stuff, and it's filled up with fluid. All right? That's why when I see certain types of heads and they're eroded in a certain fashion, you can see all these little pockets where the skin has eroded away, and now these pockets develop all over the face of the creature or whatever body part it was, and they're little tiny holes, similar to like this. All right, these are the little pockets that were in there, and that's just, anyway. What happens is there's a fluid-filled highway right here. Nobody's ever known about this. This is brand new. I wrote about this in 2015. And now it's the biggest thing in medicine. In 2018, they said, yes, this is true. There is a fluid-filled network right here, just below the skin. Remember I showed you all those layers of skin? That's this. That's those layers. I know it's hard for anybody to put their mind around it. It's just so incredible. Those are those layers that I'm showing you all up and down that guy, the whole mountainside. And then you get down to the fluid-filled highway, and then you get into the balls and all that stuff. And that's what we got here. Now, this is over in the United Kingdom. That's the skin. That's the skin of some gigantic creature. This red stuff right here, the real dark red, is the fluid-filled highway. Right? Below that are the balls and all the mud and stuff that comes out with the balls. Now this is salt water. This has a different type of moss growing on it. It's some kind of a mossy thing. Now, is it a different species? Is it just growing differently because it's in salt? I don't know. Nobody's ever checked this. They say, oh, these are stromatolites. They just grow. They're growing. No, they're not growing. This stuff is eating the balls that are underneath. And that's these balls, something similar to this. They're just creatures eating a a fleshy, gooey matrix of food. That's what they're looking for, is food. They're just eating that ball. And then when everything's done, those balls will end up like this. All right, and they may end up in the mud, yes, but they will be balls all by their little selves because there is no more edibleness to them. And you know, I got to tell you something. The same thing happens with coral. Everybody says, well, coral is just they're growing things. Not always. This is a heart. That's a coral heart. There's the valves of the heart right there. The plumbing would have gone off of here. This is the chambers of the heart. And there's still red blood in there. Like, I'll have to put it in a microscope there. You can see the red blood in there. You see? Anybody that knows what hearts are made like, they're made in like a big rubber band that goes around a circle, and it twists. It doesn't pump this way, it twists. And as it twists, it shoots up the blood through the top. This guy looks like his face. That's a heart, but it's coral. That's coral, and it is a heart. Have any heart surgeon to talk to me? This is the heart. And there's the red blood is still in there. Some of it crystallized into red, whatever it is now, rubies or whatever. Some kind of gemstone. And that's how these things turn into gemstones. I've shown it 1,000,000 times. I got them all over the place. There's a red ruby or something coming right out of that one right there. And this is a fingertip. This is where all your gemstones come out of, is blood. And then it's all because of the colors of the transition metals working with the silicates, and they turn into gemstones with facets. You see, I told you, this is 2018. Meet your interstitium, a new-found organ. Well, it's this layer right here. That's the fluid-filled highway. By the time they ever had them autopsied, it was flat. There was no more fluid. They thought it was just a thick layer of stuff because they never really looked at it. I could see it in my mud fossils. I said, I see this everywhere. What's that all about? I got a hold of a fascia guy, 15 years ago. And we discussed it. And he said, that's just, they called it fuzz. They called it fuzz. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. I said, no. It means something. And here's where it is. But that was flat by the time they got there. So what they would get into is this gooey stuff with all the balls and the sacs and so forth. And they would actually see it in that gooiness. And they'd just take it out and throw it away. I'm not kidding you. They thought it was nothing. They thought it was just padding. And that's where all those balls are, see? And this lets you pull this way and pull that way and pull this way and pull this way, and you come back. This is expendable. That's your skin. Your skin really is made to just fall off. These pieces are falling off all over the place. They claim something like 90% of the dust in your house is skin. Some ridiculous figure. I can't remember now. All right. Don't forget, this is strictly research on every single side of everything. I look for the biology. I look for invasion. I look for the chemistry. Now, what did they just find out? This just came out a couple days ago. Long thought to be sterile, our brains are now believed to harbor all sorts of microorganisms, from bacteria to fungi. how big a part do they play in Alzheimer's and similar diseases? All brain neurofunctional diseases, in my opinion, my theory, is their invasion of the insulation of the fibers. And there is literally probably millions of these fibers. And every one of them has to be insulated with a membrane, just as your tissues from your organs have to be insulated by a membrane so they can't get invaded. If they get invaded and it interferes with the signals, you're not going to be able to do what you're supposed to do. These are neuromotivation signals. I want to close my hand. Somehow, from my brain to my hand, a signal comes down. It's got to go through some kind of circuitry. There's got to be. It absolutely must be. You can't say from my mind, and all of a sudden that happens, like microwaves. Well, maybe you could. I don't know. See, this is where it gets crazy. You don't know until you just keep examining, thinking. But they thought, oh, the brain barrier is too small. The blood-brain barrier, you can't get through there. Forget about it. I don't even look up there. Now they find it saturated with it. But what I found was extremely interesting is not only did they find all of these different chemistry that they never realized, or different biology that they never realized was up in your brain, making this exquisite chemistry to make your brain work. They found something they can't determine what it is, and it's an algae-like substance. Okay, like I said, this is just research, but it is exciting. Now, they said it used to be widely assumed the brain was the last bastion of sterility in the human body because of the blood-brain barrier. Microbes were thought to be too big to pass through. It turns out that microbes flourish in the brain. They just never looked. The brain microbiome is hard to study, though, because we can't just take a sample as we would for the gut or swab it like a vagina or a nose. Well, autopsy results should be able to do something. Now, they're talking about Alzheimer's, and this microbial infections has a role in dementia, goes back to 1906. Now, let me just stop right here. I have been warned by YouTube not to talk about medical things. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to talk about the thing that they did find that was this algae-like substance. But this particular article is absolutely stunning in its detail about the microbes and so forth that they found. And this is international. The whole world is trying to work this out to get rid of this Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, all this. So you should read this whole article. This guy's name is Lath, is part of an international group of scientists collaborating on the Alzheimer's Pathobiome Initiative. Pathology of why are they getting sick? It's led by this Schultek as executive director and founder. Pathobiome refers to the pathogenic disease-causing microbes and the host susceptibility to them. I see it in a little bit different way. Not every one of these microbes is pathogenic, has hurt you. Most of them really help you. She has brought together scientists from different fields, including microbiologists, immunologists, gerontologists, neurologists, to better understand the role of microbes in the brain, to devise ways to diagnose and treat brain infections that might ordinarily fly under the medical radar. This is very, very detailed about all of the different types of bacteria and fungi type this and virus, adenovirus type C and chloroplastidide. Now here's where it gets here. Algae-related species, see this? In the control brains, microbes differed between brain regions and individuals, hosting mainly fungi, bacteria, and something here, chloroplastidea, algae-related species. Algae. And they can't understand what it is. They see that algae stuff and they say, wow, this is kind of crazy. That stuff is living in our brain, algae-looking stuff. Well, I think that's what we're finding turns into moss. I'd love to see them do some research on it. Because every time red blood makes moss grow, I always thought moss just loved the red blood, but now I'm seeing that it's just impossible for this moss to find this red blood everywhere, and it does. I'm going to show you some pictures. It's hard for you to dismiss this. Now here it is right here. Here's the statement from them. There's all these different species. We saw overabundance, several microbes. Major ones are species such as this and that and so forth. Then, in quotations, he says, there was also a mysterious algae-related species, but it hasn't been studied much in relation to human health. It could be very important, but we don't know anything about it. I think it's the algae that's growing on the red blood cells. That's all I can tell you. Okay, so we're back to our green mice. These little tendon enthesis balls. They had to have that algae-related blood biology built right into them. In my mind, I have come to the conclusion there is no other alternative possibility. Here they are, and here's what they look like when they're being eaten. The ball is right there. These things are coming down in here to eat that stuff, or the moss is growing out of it, however you want to look at it. But there is no roots to these. They have no roots. They just grow, and they roll around, and they grow around these balls. And after they eat everything is edible, they're done, and then they turn into the Moki marbles. In my mind, there is zero possibility for any other possibility here. We know these are rotting right out of these walls. I had people over there in the United Kingdom that went right up to these, and they sent me pictures showing me the balls and everything, and the fluid-filled highway and all that stuff right here. It's very easy to study this stuff. Or it just takes somebody that wants to walk out there and take a couple of pictures. Absolutely. Tyson Carlson up in the out of Oregon, United States. He's got a site up there. It's absolutely stunning. It's got all the same stuff, everything. And he's out there doing some work on it, looking at the stuff and presenting it. He's got a channel. It's called Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. And he's got some stunning stuff there. You know, we don't agree on every little thing. Who's ever going to do that? But he's got stunning stuff, and we agree on 90% of it. Now, here's what biology looks like. And here it is. Coal is actually the bloody flesh. This right here is actually the membrane. Right up here is where this is all membranous areas, but this is the mudstone, is the skin. This is what biology is. This is not geology, this is biology. All right, now, again, I've shown all this stuff. I don't know what else I could show you. How much more I can show it. Well, let me show you this. Look at this. Explain that to me. Explain that to me, my friend. What is this? Who painted this white? And who painted that green again with moss? And this guy's looking at us saying, I wonder how that happened. Gee, that's interesting. He's probably saying, I wonder how this happened. I can see he's got a mind that thinks. Now, I can tell you exactly how this happened. This is red blood, vein blood. When I showed you the stuff coming down out of the sides of the mountains, it's the same stuff. The same stuff. The black running down there, the red running down there. The layers running across here. And it's not just in muscle, it's in everything. This one here, well, you saw my little buddy, my little flea guy. A flea looks almost exactly like that. You see his little legs, got that little stuff sticking off there. There's no question that's real. That's where his eyeballs were. There's a little bit less stability there. All of that green is growing into blood, which this thing was probably saturated with. Anywhere where there's red blood, red blood, she'll suck it up like crazy. Look at this. What's that? What made that? I know what that is. Well, there's two possibilities here. It could be a brain, or it could be muscle fiber, or tendons. Tendons look like this. I believe this is a snapped off tendon. And here's another one over here. And again, this one here I think is a brain. Because it doesn't have, you see how it has all these little facets going this way and that way in here? I think this is the brain. I'll show you another brain that doesn't have moss on it because it's not in a moist area. You got to have a little bit of moisture, and then they just start growing like crazy. Even when you don't have moisture, it will grow in red blood. They'll stay alive. They'll be brown, but they'll stay alive virtually forever. I have them in my shop for 10, 15 years. Still got moss in them. Never put any water on them. Just sitting here. Still got that moss growing. All right, now this one here, I'm almost certain, well, I know this is a brain. It's got an eyeball sticking out of here, and there's the brain and the two lobes of the brain. You see this, the way these here are? This is different than a tendon. All right, tendons have a very similar look to them, but this was this one here. All right, you see how they got the little fractured edges around them, and they're like a lumpy looking, they're not like flat, broken across. Tendons are basically flat and broken across, and the tendons were somewhere around here. Oh, this is what happens when I get too many things open at once. Oh, here they are. This I don't think is a brain. I think this is a tendon, and I'll show you why, and I'll show you what tendons look like as they cascade down. This is like almost at the rope style, and then it comes down to this, and then out of these come a million zillion others, and then another zillion, and then another zillion. It's just incredible how tough tendons are, all the fibers. Let me show you what they look like in a different rock formation. All right, what you have to understand about tendons is you have a rope style tendon here. It comes down, is blocked off into these three sections like this. There may be more, but let's go with three. One of them comes out square. All right, then out of this square, a whole ton of them come out round. So there's about a bazillion here that come out round. And in every one of those, they have a bazillion other ones that come out in a hex. That's these. And then they come down into some other stuff. And then they continue on as little tiny fibrils on until they hit those balls, which are the tendon balls or the enthesis balls I've been talking about. And there's literally millions and millions of them in your body. You just have no idea. Now this is this pattern right here. You see the pattern? I believe it's probably down to this layer here, or maybe here or somewhere, but it keeps going down, 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 down until it gets down to these fibers that are so tiny, it's incredible. But this is what a tendon would look like. The other one was brain. I'm going with brain on the other one. Now, if you look around the world, you're going to see places with these Giant's Causeway, all over the place, everywhere. They say this is, everything they ever say is about, oh, a volcano, magma. It's crazy. Oh yeah, crystal, and they cool down, and then they perform it. It's absolutely insanity. And if you look at what they say about Crowley Lake, I believe it's it's California, but it's Crowley Lake. All these little columns. It's crazy what they say in geology, but you have to repeat that, or they will fail you. Now, this is biology, my friends. This is just no other possibility of the things that I am showing you. And if we could have a roundtable discussion between the top geologists, chemists, biologists, anatomists, and people that understand the ancient texts. What they did say in the ancient texts is exactly this. Everything I have told you is supported by the evidence. Evidence is evidence. They have no evidence and a lot of theories. I have a lot of evidence to support the ancient texts that weren't just theories, that weren't silly, just nonsense. They were stories that were written down and preserved in extreme detail. And the Nag Hammadi texts are just unbelievable. And they were buried over 2,000 years ago. And so there's no corrections to those texts or the Dead Sea Scrolls. They came out of the ground as they were put into the ground. Nobody's changed them since then. Everything else. All right, let me just tell you something. I'm just hoping like crazy that I can talk to Robert Kennedy Jr. there. This is the layer of immunity. And he's talking about all kinds of problems with invasion in the little kids. They get all kinds of little diseases, and they're dying, and they're getting all kinds of autism and all kinds of things. Is there any way we can help? I would like to talk to him, because this is something brand new. Interstitium, meet your newfound organ. This organ is a layer of immunity. Never was known before, and it's still not known. I've talked to all kinds of people that are in the medical industry. Oh, it's just one of those things. No, it's not just one of those things. This is the thing that is your immune system. Every organ has the same coating like this, which is called the interstitium now. Which, to me, I wrote a paper on this in 2015. This is 2018. My paper was 2015. It says it was a fluid-filled network that formed one giant system that coated every organ in your body and every tissue. They all have membranes. And now they realize that that's true. But they still now don't understand the enzymes, the catalysts, the ribosomes, the bacteria, and then the invasion of things that kill bacteria. If you kill the bacteria in your body, it can't, that's called antibiotics. Antibiotics kill bacteria, but then you need to get the bacteria come back to you. If you don't, it doesn't come back, you're going to be vulnerable to invasion. Because the stuff that was here that was good, a lot of times with the antibiotics, it kills everything, broad spectrum. It doesn't just target one thing, so they all go. Now, if you need certain chemistry, it's no longer there. That's an issue. This is what we're trying to address with a database to cover all the bacterias and viruses and enzymes and catalysts and fungus and everything that's in your body creates chemistry. Every single thing there is that lives creates chemistry. If it's alive, it has to absorb things and poop things out. You got to deal with that chemistry. That's what these enzymes do. And bacteria, they carry the stuff over to the lymph nodes. They come over, they clean stuff up. They eat up the dead skin cells and body cells that are dying inside you. We're all dying. I got hundreds of thousands of them dying right this instant inside my body, just as you do. Somebody's got to come clean them up. You need all of that stuff. If you don't have it, what you're going to have is invasion, because the membrane cannot stop the invaders. And you got them coming through. You got them all day long. You got thousands of invaders touching you right now. And every one of them is being kept at bay due to this system right here. Up here, yeah, you get a little infection, you get a little red, well, who cares? Once it gets down in here, then you got serious. That's when you get pus and infection and inflammation and everything else. But hopefully you got the right guys to come, even way down in here. They'll come down and they'll attack it down in here and kill it. And then it'll seal it back up again. That's what you are. That's what happens when you get immune to something, and it can keep it a while. That's all it is. And because, like I say, there's over 100 cancers, you have to assume the only thing they have in common is that they all have membranes. They all have different chemistry. And I say all membranes have different chemistry. Every single organ has its own chemistry in its membrane, because down here it might be acid, it might be salts, it might have a lot of metals, it might have a lot of whatever. And this knows what can go out and what can come in. This is critical. Everyone has different things coming in and out because it's got different chemistry. But they're all membranes. And I say that's where, and membranes also are little tiny cellular looking things. And they glue together. And they call them tight junctions. They're supposed to be tight. Nothing can get through there. Well, if they're loose and they're flopping around, something goes right through. And why would they be loose? The chemistry, the glue that holds them together is not gluey enough. Right through. I got a lot of research on this, a lot of research. I want to talk to the powers that be that are interested now. There was nowhere, not a bit of interest. All I was blocked. And I might be blocked on this one too, just for talking about this. It's unbelievable that the pushback on everything that I've ever done. And all I want to do is discuss it. I'm not saying anybody do anything. I'm not saying I can cure anything or help anything or do anything. I just show what's going on in the human body. And it's research. Without research, it's 100% guesses. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's mostly guesses at this point. We're getting there. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at this. Thank you for watching. And there's going to the next video right here, the stuff I'm doing here, meteorites. Somebody sent me this thing today that they've known about the organic matter inside of meteorites since 1961. They've been finding this, and this video is like long. It's like 5 hours long. But right away I found everything. He says, well, anyway, that's going to be a great video. Because this is meteorites. That's a meteorite came through space. Exploded this off the side because there was wet red blood in there. This was a fingertip. And here's a terrestrial one from Earth. Exactly identical. This one just, the blood ran out. This one exploded coming through space and cooked it all up and turned it black and everything. Same fingertips. Only this one's a little smaller and didn't come through space. You see the hooks? See that hook? You see that hook? You see that little spot right there? That's our vein. That's a vein. That's a vein. That's a vein. This side is the red blood side, the artery side. That's artery blood, artery blood, artery blood. This is artery blood, and it didn't blow out here, but that's where the artery blood would have blown out if it had exploded. It had already exploded out of here. And the reason it exploded was it was wet. It was moist. It had moisture in it. Popped right out. I also have another meteorite here. This one, oh, it's in the microscope. This one here. It's iron. Well, it's not. Here's the deal with meteorites. All right, they will turn into iron, depending upon the size of them and the way they came through the atmosphere. If it's a little one like this, they don't normally burn up completely and turn into just one ball of steel, like metal. Some do. It depends on where it came in. But about this size right here, they don't cook enough. This is a lung from some creature, and I can absolutely 100% guarantee you, and I can show you the spurlock, which is the attachment that holds this lung into the body of the creature, whatever this creature was. And that came through space. And that's why it's magnetic, or it's, metal. And when I show you this in a microscope, with a little bit of moisture on here, it will rehydrate. You'll be able to see where the blood is. You'll actually be able to see blood. All right? And this is nothing more than a lung. You see all the alveoli, all of that stuff. And I got other ones here too. This one came through. This one here is whoops. This one here is a fraction of a bone. And that's the marrow of the bone turned into iron. Let me show you something. This is not magnetic at all because it's bone, but it didn't burn up. You'd expect that to burn up, but it doesn't. This didn't burn up. It just turned into iron because it's in the inside of the bone. You can actually see the red blood in here. I'll put this in the microscope. You can see the red blood, and this has cooked into iron. Now, you got to get it the right spot where there's enough magnetism to hold this, there's enough iron. Because if you go over here, there's nothing. There's nothing at all. You see that? That's because that's bone. But you go here, and that's where the blood was. So this was some kind of bone that just exploded. And again, we'll be able to see the blood in the microscope. So I am going to be getting in some DNA tests. I'll show how I extracted DNA out of this, which I believe it's a human fingertip. Came through space. I don't care what anybody says anymore. They said there was battles in the heavens, and I believe that's exactly correct. And these things are products of that, or this could have become from the impact of Mars when Venus hit Mars. Everything went into space, so all kinds of gigantic things. Asteroid Bennu is a heart. They just went up and picked up a piece of it and brought it back to Earth, and it is a heart. No question whatsoever. It's got the sarcomeres inside of it. It's got the phospholipid layers, and they said phosphate surprise. Wow, we never expected this. And it's got all the sarcomeres in there. Showing this over and over, and I'm going to continue to do this. We spent billions of dollars to get that, and they want to spend years. They've already had it back here for over a year, and they still can't figure out what they're looking at. It's unbelievable. And I've tried to get through to all of those people. If they say they haven't, there's no way they would have ever known about this. Then they're not doing their job. They're not looking at evidence that's presented to them, which I present. Asteroid Bennu, 100% certainty. And they have it here on Earth. No question whatsoever, it can be examined. I'm going to submit this. I'm going to drill deep in here with a masonry drill into the heart of where the red blood is. Never been touched by human hands. Came through space. It's probably going to be cooked too much. But if I get right down, like basically in the center of the mass, I might get some blood out of here that has some DNA to it, they would be able to say something about it. I don't know. Now, I had real fancy tests done on my original giants, which is called a PCR test. It's expensive. I don't want to spend that kind of money, and I don't think anybody else does, and nobody will pay attention to it anyway. This is just going to tell us, if I submitted this, would it tell me if it was human? It should. I can get stuff out of here that could very, very well still have good DNA in it. I'm telling you, the catalase test shows that there's plenty of that enzyme left in most of these. Now, the ones coming through space, I'm not certain. But I know this one does. This one I did a catalase test on. It just foamed like crazy. I mean, absolutely amazing. So this one, I would say there's going to be some kind of DNA. It probably won't be human, though. Because that doesn't look, well, it could be a little tiny human person, but who knows? It's the right shape and everything. Anyway, let's see what we get back. I'm going to submit 3-4 samples. Here's another meteorite came through. This one here exploded right there. You see that? I'm going to show you something to knock your eyes out. This came through, and I believe it came through like this. This didn't get cooked as much as underneath. The underneath got just scoured and exploded this piece right off of here. And what's under that piece? Red blood. All right, you want to see red blood? I'll show you some red blood rehydrate instantaneously. All right, take a look at it now. You can see it's reddish already. All right, this is a tendon anchor, a ponerosis tendon. It comes down here and it anchored right there. And there's a membrane right here between the layers. Watch this. That's blood red because it is blood. You see that? It's just a layer of tissue, and it's a bloody layer of tissue. Now, this right here, this is where there was a tendon enthesis, and it cooked right off, but you can see the gnarly stuff doesn't cook. That doesn't cook like the rest. That's just very, very heavy duty, but it was fried. You know, they call that the air fryer, coming through space. And here's some nice red blood right there. There's no question I get blood out of this. And this, there's the artery and the vein. There's the artery right there. There's the vein, the black one. So anyway, I have just undeniable amount of evidence here to support the statements I'm making. I'm not making silly claims. Now, I'm hoping that the new administration here in the United States will look at this for what it is. It's real. This is real. That's a piece of meat. That was a piece of meat from something. All of this stuff solidified in the Great Flood. That's why they're flat. On one side, they're flat. Even Caesar here, my goose, Caesar Augustus. There's his feathers. They never considered this type of fossilization. It's called nucleophilic substitution, an invasion. And it invades membranes. That's the key. The membranes keep everything separated so you stay a goose head. This side, he was laying like this. That side right there, you can see that there's still his throat, you can just see, because it was like crushed in or whatever. But there's some little thing to show that. That must be his ear. Huh, I never thought about looking at that. That must be his ear, I would think. This would be where his eye was, because that's where his other eye is. And that little hole, I guess, is his ear. There's a hole here. I suppose there'd be a hole right there. And then this is his artery. And right over there is the vein. You can't see it. The veins clamp right off, and they just turn black and clamp off. I can't really see it. I can't make it out. But anyway, that's my buddy, Caesar Augustus. A lot to look at, my friends, a lot. Bones turn to stones. This is cartilage. You never find that in any kind of, fossil bones. It's because these were mud fossils. They were preserved in the Great Flood. Written in every culture on the face of the planet. Velikovsky did all the research, denied by academics since 1950. That's 75 years of denial. He was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for 11 weeks in a row with his book, Worlds in Collision, which laid it out how all this stuff happened. Venus almost hit Earth, and it caused a disaster that was which created the 3 layers, the red bed, the gray clay, the black cap. All of those I have here. And the red blood is nothing more than boiled off blood and fleshy stuff. And it collected at the bottom, settled to the bottom. Then the gray clay, which is all the body parts and stuff, collected in that layer above, because the first thing, just all gooey stuff, just laid down, it's called a red bed. And I have some here, hold on, I get it. Stay with me, don't go no week. Hold on, I gotta hear this. And not only that, there it is right here. This is what they call the red bed. All right, hold on. Hold the fort, my friends. This is just eroded stuff. This is not a body, a creature's body. I don't think, although it could be. Now that I'm looking at it, but I think it's just erosion of the red bed. Now this, I know for a fact, is the red bed right here. There is no body parts in there whatsoever. It's just the red flesh. Not only that, it was where a human being-ish thing stepped on that red bed, and this is gray clay, and it pushed this gray clay down through that red bed. And now I also have the top, which is the black caps, way up to here. It's all the layout, all the fallout from the volcanoes and stuff. This, I'm having a hard time finding a place to put this. Hold on. We gotta move some meteorites. We gotta do some meteorite removal. All right, meteorite removal complete. Now, what do we see? Well, we see a footprint pushed this, which had to be wet, because it's perfectly, this is so perfect, it's unbelievable. You see the balls of the guy's feet. I think this was a no-toe, because I don't see any toes in here. But anyway, this happened at the Triassic layer. This is gray clay. This should be on top of the red bed. But look, it pushed this down through this red bed to the bottom. That's supposed to be above this red bed. This is now below the red bed because the guy stepped on it. So what does that tell you? If you start thinking, just use your brain a little tiny bit. This had to be wet, and this had to be wet at the same time for this to push down through. And then the black cap landed on top of this almost instantaneously, because these are what I call suck-ups. These little things here are where it went and pulled up and left these little dimples. And they are perfectly preserved. Flawlessly preserved, all would say. You see those little dimples? That's from where the guy, his feet went in and he went. All right, and there's the tip. I don't see any toes, but I can certainly see the balls of his feet. And the heel is back here where the heel hit. This is the Triassic. They say this happened 580 million years ago or something. This happened about 3,700 years ago. Is Velikovsky's account. I believe him way more than I do the academics. You see the red bed? This gray clay is supposed to be up over here. Now it's below. They had to be wet at the same time. And then the black cap, which I have, sat right on top of here. It's heavy. I don't want to carry it over here, but it's a big, heavy black cap of just the fallout. It's black. It's from the volcanoes and all the other debris that came down after the catastrophe, which created the Great Flood. It's all been recorded, and we just never had any evidence. Now we have the evidence. Now it's time to look it up. Look up what we can find out. Start looking into these ancient accounts. Who wrote what? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's fraudulent writings back then. I can see this. And they did say, there will be false teachers among you, just like there was false prophets among us. I'm telling you, that's what it says. And these false prophets made up their own stories so they could ingratiate themselves. Exactly what's happening today with academics. No difference whatsoever.